What's up, y'all? It's Miles the Millennial.
And it's your boy Rex Howard Jr.
And this is Let's Talk Like Men, the podcast where we have real conversations about real topics, giving real advice to men like you everywhere. And we're excited to be back again with another episode. Rex, how are you doing, brother?
Man, I'm blessed, man. We just sat down at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
We had a wonderful conversation, had some
Yeah.
good food. And I'm super excited about this conversation, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing wonderful. It was definitely good being able to just sit and chill and spend time and talk about life and everything that's going on in it with you. That's good for men to have, is that brotherly bonding. So I'm blessed, man, to say the least. I'm just excited to be back for this episode today.
Yeah, me too. But before we go too far, I want to say something.
Yeah.
One of my guys reached out to me and was like, man, I bet you and Miles just hang out all the time. I said,
Actually.
honestly, I said we probably hung out twice.
Yeah.
I said typically if we're shooting, we'll probably go somewhere right after to discuss the episode. But other than that, we don't really do too much. But
Yeah.
today just reminded me that we need to prioritize a little bit more.
Be more intentional. Look, y'all don't understand how big Houston is. So when you stay on two opposite ends, he's super north, I'm super south, it is tough to make it work. But it is something that we have to prioritize. I'm really just happy that the Lord has put us in a space where we have such natural chemistry with each other and continuity that you think we've known each other our whole life, 100%. The way that we're able to connect. But that's just the beauty of friendship, man. And I'm just blessed to see where it goes and the ways that we're intentional in growing our bond. So we're back again. And today we're going to be talking about the relational trauma that a man needs to deal with, Rex. Specifically, when we're talking about relational trauma, we're speaking on things like the trauma he has from his parent, right? His parenting relationships, trauma that he has from partners, the trauma he has even interpersonally. So this is going to be a powerful discussion because this is our part 2 of our 4 trauma series, right? We really set out on a mission that we wanted to come back and talk about the 4 traumas that every man has to deal with. And last week we started with sexual trauma, but this week we're going to move into this conversation about relational trauma. Rex, why is this such an important topic for us to talk about?
Man, because relationships is all we're going to know, right? The Bible says it's not good for a man to be alone, right? He doesn't just mean that in the sense of romance, but just in the sense of brotherhood, in the sense of accountability and community. So in order for us to operate and be our healthiest versions of ourselves in relationships, we have to address the traumas that cause our relationships to go left.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a perfect conversation because if a man wants to be a husband, if a man wants to be a good friend, if a man wants to build a nice community, if he wants to be a good father, he has to address those relational traumas in order to build healthy relationships.
Yeah, that's good. And it's absolutely the truth. It's absolutely the truth. One thing that I'll say before we jump into this is when I saw it pop up, I immediately had to dig deep.
Yeah.
Right into my past and to think about so many different things and how they play out in the present. And that's one of the things that I'm appreciating about this series. And we talked about it last week on camera. We were saying, like, you guys don't understand. We're battling through discomfort in the moment on the camera, talking about these different trauma. Trauma isn't supposed to be something that's easy for you to address. That's why, because it's traumatizing, right? It is something so ingrained and deep that when you do uncover it and you start to talk about it, it isn't an easy conversation, but it's a well worth it conversation. So without further ado,
hey,
let's talk like men. All right, cool. So hot topic for today, before we get into the main topic, I want to talk about something that's actually very inspiring. And it was something I saw pop up on my feed, which was Jason Wilson. Many of you may know him, many of you may not know him, but I'm pretty sure most of us have seen him come across our feed at some point in time on your social media platforms. Jason Wilson is an author. He's an activist. He's a key figure in the male personal development space, whether that's working with his young boys in the Cave of Adullam, where they're working together to develop these boys with martial arts and giving them skills for their life. Actually, I said that wrong. Cave of Adullam. Got it right. I had to think about it for a second. Or just the books that he's written, Cry Like a Man, Battle Cry, and his new one, which is The Man the Moment Demands.
Yeah.
Right? These books are so impactful on men's journeys, and he's very transparent in his own journey into becoming the person that he is today as a father, as a husband, as a mentor, as a friend. He was on B. Simone's podcast earlier this week, I believe, or maybe late last week. And there was some really powerful moments where he was speaking to her. And when I saw the conversation, I'm like, he's almost talking to her, almost like the father that, you know, I don't know if she has a father or but it was like the father that she never had, like the words that she needed to hear from a man that she hadn't heard before about herself, about her worth, about her being a daughter of God. And Jason Wilson was posting about it and talking about it and saying, you know, I thank God for the fact that I had to go through the things that I've gone through in my life, so that when this moment came with her on her show live, I was able to adjust and be that man that could give her the solace, the comfort, the nurturing aspect that she needed, the strength that she needed. I'm just blessed that the Lord has given me that. And what I wanted to talk to you about is, why is it so important that we go through hard things as a man? Why is it so crucial that you be challenged now in terms of what happens in the future?
Because we live in a hard world. Right? We live in a constant changing world, like of good things and of bad things, of presidential changes, of wars changing, of environmental changes. Like, for perfect example, I know we grew up kind of different, but in the environment that I grew up in, there was a lot of gangs going on.
Yeah.
There was prostitution. There was a lot of alcoholics. There was a lot of drugs being sold. There was a lot of everything. So you were constantly exposed to it. Now, being exposed to it, you got to see, am I wanting to be a part of this, or is this something that I want to refrain from so I never had to be exposed to it again?
Yeah.
Right? So if I don't go through those things, if I don't go through, personal example, I used to steal.
Yeah.
Right? All my other friends stole, and I stole it. I remember the very first time I got caught. It was at the gas station right down the street from the house I grew up at in Knoxville, Tennessee. And me being trying to be grown too fast, I'm stealing a box of condoms, knowing I wasn't even about to use them. Too young to even try them.
Yeah.
So, I'm in there and I take them, thinking I'm being sneaky, and I walk out. And as soon as I walk out, the owner grabbed me by my arm. He said, "Give them to me, or I'm gonna make sure you go to jail or get in trouble." And in that moment, I've never been caught doing nothing bad before. I gave it to him. He said, "Listen, you're a good kid. Don't let this be a habit. Don't let this be a pattern."
Yeah.
And that put something in me. Right. So even those moments like that was a hard moment for me, because I realized, oh, there's consequences behind these actions. You can't just go out here and take stuff that you didn't earn.
Exactly.
So, in short, I think that's why we got to go through hard things to understand that we do live in a hard world, and nothing's really going to be easy for you as a man.
That's good, man. And I also think that from a perspective of what we're called to be by God as leaders, right? As the people who set a standard and a tone and are supposed to be strong in the calling that he places on our life. And we're all going to have different versions of what, that calling looks like. But if you are weak, and when I say weak, I don't mean it from the traditional standpoint of what weakness looks like in a man. But if you're weak in your emotional understanding and intelligence, and you don't know how to empathize, you don't know how to even cry when it's time for you to cry, if you don't know how to be strong in moments and exercise strength, even though your emotions may be trying to take over you in certain moments, and knowing, hey, now is not the time to cry. If you don't go through hard things and have to learn these tough things, then when there's a moment for you to show up and do what God has asked you to do in that moment, you will not be prepared to do it. Right. And so I think about that with Jason, because in that moment when B. Simone is telling her story about her experiences, Jason is able to read her and say, what you think you need is not what you really need. What you need is love. What you need is for a man to come in and tell you who you really are, whose you really are, and remind you that there's greater within you because of the Lord that created you than anything that the world can define for you. And so I think that that's such a pivotal moment, because if he's not prepared for that moment, he answers from a world perspective.
Yeah.
He comes with his worldly wisdom. And that might not be the answer. More times than not, it's not the answer.
Yeah.
But instead, he grabbed her hands and he said, let me pray for you. Right? And she talked about how that moment changed her. For all we know, that could be the turning point in her life to make her more submitted to God, to make her a servant of God and let God use her in different ways, just because he showed up in that moment as the man the moment needed, right? The man the moment demands. And first off, shout out to Jason. because I can't wait to read that book. I've read his other 2 books. I can't wait to read that book because I think that is such an amazing title, The Man the Moment Demands. And I think that when we accept that as men, that there's going to be a different version of us needed every single day and in any given moment, you realize that there's nothing more masculine than your preparation and openness and willingness to go into the places that are uncomfortable emotionally, mentally, and your relational traumas. So that way, when that moment comes up and you need to pull on it, you're ready.
And that's so good. And I think last thing I'll say before we move on, that's what hard things is what prepared me to be a counselor, right? Just being and having hard conversations, being around things with other people dealing with hard things, it prepared me for even today. I had a new client that came in today, and initially he called me, Rex, I'm angry, man. I'm dealing with a lot of anger, and it's affecting my marriage and it's affecting everything that I'm doing. And I'm like, man, yeah, let's get you in the office and
Yeah.
let's sit down, let's talk about it. But from this lens that I have now, or trauma lens, is I know that you're not angry for no reason.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's something underneath that anger. Man, long story short, after he's sitting down and we're swapping it out, we talk about his childhood, and he talked about how his uncle used to make him sit on his lap, and he had a hard on, right? And then his uncle started changing him as a kid and was playing with him, and then his uncle took him to the woods, and used to have intercourse with him, and then his uncle brought a friend over and let the other friend do the same thing to him, and
Lord.
and this happened between ages 5 to 8, so for 3 years. And he was just like, I've never really told nobody about it. I'm going through these relationships, and I'm having, substance abuse and alcohol abuse, and I'm going through recovery. But one thing I've never done is do the trauma work. He was like, I've talked about it. I can share it a little bit. And of course, it's uncomfortable. But I think that is the reason why, man, I'm like, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
That's why you're angry.
Yeah.
Right. You haven't been able to protect yourself. You dealt with all the shame. Everything was done in secret. When you went to go tell your parents didn't believe you.
Yeah.
Right. So that you have every reason to be angry. But now that you're here, now it's time to do the underneath work, the relational trauma that's going to help you get to the next level. So I think that going through hard things and experiencing hard things and having hard conversations equipped and prepared me to pour into men like that, even though he's in his 50s,
Yeah.
29 years old.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of men won't come sit on the couch and let somebody pour into them that's younger than them.
Yeah.
But the fact that God has prepared me, right, it makes me think about the book of Exodus, because I've been reading it. And God told Moses to go do something. And he was like, but God, I'm not the most savviest person when it comes to talk. He said, I'll give you the thing to say.
I'll give it to you.
And I feel like in those moments when I have anxiety about saying the wrong things, or I have imposter syndrome, God always prepares me and gives me the things that I need in those moments. So that goes to show, like, that's why hard things are necessary.
Yes, that's so good, brother. That's good. That was amazing. Hot topic. That could have been a main topic in and of itself, man. The man, the moment demands. Maybe we might do something about that. Jason, if you ever watch this, hit us up. But yeah, man, that was powerful. So let's move into our main topic, right? Relational trauma and the importance of it. So Rex, you want to start off, or you want me to take it?
I want you to go ahead. Take it up,
cool. So I'm going to start with my point number 1 on why this relational trauma, this conversation, diving deep into it is so important. And my point number 1 is this. It creates and sets the tone for the triggers and the foundational mindsets that you're going to have.
Talk about
right?
it.
So I'll just use me as an example of some of the relational traumas and how they've played out in my life from a parenting perspective. Love my parents, amazing parents, but my parents were strict as all get out.
Yeah.
Right? Could never go anywhere. Couldn't leave the corner if they couldn't see me. And I'm talking about up until 12, 13 years old, couldn't do these things. And it got to a point to where when I wanted to explore different things, when I wanted to have different experiences in life, instead of being able to feel like I could be open with my parents about it and receive a certain level of responsibility, I was like, no, they're going to say no anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sneak around and do it.
Yeah.
Right? At least that way I can do, what it is that I want to do, because I'll never get the chance to do it if I tell them.
Yeah.
So that turned into a habit as I got older and became a grown man of thinking that sneaking around was just the way you got to do things. It was a thrill for me. It was something exciting in anything in life.
Yeah.
Playing the game, being unfaithful, doing all these different things were triggered in the or rooted in this foundation that came from my relationship with my parents, where I early, learned and realized that, it's no fun if you do things the right way. You gotta sneak and do it in order for you to have some fun in life.
100%.
And really, when I was talking to my therapist, he's like, you were seeking agency over your own body and over your own life because you felt like your parents were taking it from you because they were so strict. And that was so important for me to be able to realize where it was rooted in, where that desire for things to be so sneaky in my life came from. And then from a partner perspective, right? The only other time that I've ever experienced heartbreak, right? Because, and I've said this before, going through that relationship and you cry your tears and you go through all that pain, seeing how pettiness was one of the main things that I just despised about that relationship. And she was so petty all the time for things. That became something that in life I was seeking out. Right. And so in my relationship now, it's like I am hypersensitive to anything I deem as being petty. And what ends up happening is you start to cast an image on a person that isn't necessarily true just because your image in the past was broken.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm looking through it with a broken lens. I'm not seeing the truth. And so I'm thinking, oh, you're doing this because you're being petty. I've seen this before. And I'm going so hard to attack that particular behavior. And this person's like, I wasn't doing that. Right. That wasn't the reasoning behind why I'm doing it. And I'm sitting here talking to my girl. She's like, I wasn't being petty. And I'm sitting here not understanding why it is that I'm so sensitive to pettiness until I sit down and really talk about it and get to the root of the fact that, bro, you were traumatized by that relationship and you don't want to ever be hurt again. And that's why it's so important to have those conversations and to dive deep into your relational trauma, because it's going to set the foundation for what triggers you in the future. It's also going to set the foundation for your mindset and perspective on things in the future.
Absolutely. And that's absolutely amazing. So you talk about doing things and sneaking around to build your own personal agency, right? You want to feel more like an individual, more like you have a little bit more autonomy and independency. But the question I have for you now, because I always got to follow
Yeah,
up.
of course.
How well do you address or deal with the pettiness now?
Man, what I had to realize is you can't put on somebody else what somebody else put on you, right? It's not even the same person.
Yeah.
Like, okay, your ex did this to you. Is your girlfriend now her?
Yeah.
No, she's not. And you also, I think sometimes you have to give yourself credit for not being, I don't want to say dumb enough, but just naive enough to go pick the exact same person in the exact same ways.
Yeah.
Right? Give yourself some credit for the fact that you learn from the first relationship and realize, like, okay, pettiness is going to be something that is a really deteriorating factor in a relationship over an amount of time.
Yeah.
So watch out for that. I didn't pick somebody that was petty. And when you realize that you didn't pick that person for that reason, that they aren't that person, you are able to give them a clean slate and say, let me seek to understand this person by who they say they are and how they actually act, and by where they say their reasonings and behavior come from, versus me trying to paint the picture for them about who they are.
That's good.
Right. And once I stop trying to paint the picture, and I'm not perfect at it, right? But I do a much better job of realizing, like, she's not out to harm you, bro. Like, it's okay. And I think that's something that we as men need to hear. That woman that you with, be real with yourself. Do you really think she's out to harm you?
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, some of you might be in relationships with a woman that don't care and she really is out to get you. But many of the men out there, we paint our partner in the wrong light because of what happened in the past to us.
Yeah.
And we're trying to put them on the same page as the similarities that we've seen in another woman. And that's not fair to her.
Yeah.
Right. You have to give her the freedom to show you who she is. And when you have questions and something confuses you about her and you think it's the same thing, ask why.
Yeah.
And then when they sit there and say, oh, it was because of this reason, I sat there and I fought tooth and nail. No, it wasn't because of that. It's because of this, that, and that.
Yeah.
And she's sitting there confused, like, I don't think there's anything I can tell you right now. You have it hell bent in your mind that this is what I'm doing, and it's not.
Yeah.
And I really had to soften my heart and realize, like, bro, your trauma is now leaking into this relationship, and that's not fair.
Yeah, and before I even get to my point, last thing I want to say is this: nobody deserves to pay for the hurts and the traumas that the other person brought to you, right? Nobody deserves that.
Yeah.
You may feel anxious, you may feel whatever about your partner because of what your last partner did to you.
Yes.
Right. We talked about this in one of our early episodes. It's bleeding on the next partner from the cuts from the last relationship. Nobody deserves that. You need to address these things because you may ruin something good or make somebody run away from the relationship if you continue to make them feel like they're at blame for what you've been experiencing.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
That's
that's
good.
good.
So what's your point number one? Your point number one.
Absolutely, man. So, not addressing those traumas, you won't truly understand your attachment style, right?
Oh, that's good.
Right. So I just want to take this moment to talk about the four basic ones, right? There's a lot more, but I'm talking about the four basic ones. So the number one we're talking about is a secure attachment. This is one where you're comfortable with intimacy, you're comfortable with communicating, you're comfortable with being emotional with a person. You have a healthy form of a sense of who you are, a sense of self, and a sense of the people that are connected to you, right? Number two is going to be the anxious attachment. For this one, you have a fear of abandonment. You seek constant reassurance. You're sensitive to rejection, and you struggle with your own self-worth, right? It's almost like, yes, I know that I can love, but I fear that I'm able to be loved by the other people, right? That goes into the avoidant attachment style, which is you're emotionally distant. You value independence over intimacy. You struggle with vulnerability. You avoid deep emotional connection. This may be that type of person that you find that don't really open up.
Yeah.
Right. They would much rather spend time with themselves versus reaching out to you, spending time with you, but they'll call you when they need you. Right. And then we're going to go into fearful avoidant attachment style, which is a mix of anxious and avoidant traits. And it craves closeness, but it fears and it struggles with trust. Right. And, when I ask myself these questions, I'm like, oh no, I had a secure attachment.
Yeah, I was about to say which one, yeah.
But the reality of it is I didn't.
Yeah.
My truth in my childhood, I had a very anxious attachment. A secure attachment says I am able to love and I'm able to be loved. And anytime I reach out for my parents, they're always going to be there. Anytime I need something, if I needed food, if I needed warmth, if I needed clothes, if I needed help, they were going to be there. But the anxious attachment says sometimes they're there, but sometimes they're not. And that's exactly what I experienced. With my parents having so many kids, they had to work all the time. Right. So we were raised a lot by our grandparents. So there was things I needed from my parents, but certain things I didn't feel comfortable talking to them with.
Yeah.
Right. Certain things I had to hide and sneak and do. So when I'm going into these relationships, I think for me, I did look for constant reassurance. I want to know, did you love me? I want to know, is what I'm doing okay for you? I found myself overcompensating in certain areas, trying to be a people pleaser because I don't want you to I don't want you to leave.
Yeah.
Right. And then it was hard for me to leave certain situations out of fear that, not to say I wouldn't find anybody else, but out of fear of breaking something that I built so hard to do. So without addressing those traumas, you won't really be able to understand or acknowledge your attachment styles.
Man, you know what's crazy about that, bro? Is so many of the, let's just say, characteristics that come out of having one of these particular attachment styles, specifically if you don't have the secure one, you can trick yourself into thinking that your actions that you're doing are coming from the right place. So let's just say the anxious style, right? You said you're going above and beyond to please people because you have a fear of them leaving you, right? Now, you can very easily look at that, and especially with the way the world is designed for men to, oh, you need to go above and beyond, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I'm not saying that that's a wrong thing, but when it comes from the wrong place, it can be manipulated, abused, and used improperly. It's irresponsible. And you can be going above and beyond for your lady, and everybody's going to look at it as, oh man, he's serving her, right? He's serving her the right way, and he's this, he's that. And it's like, but I'm sacrificing all my priorities. I'm sacrificing my goals. I'm sacrificing my happiness. I'm sacrificing my relationship with God. I'm sacrificing all these things to please her.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's not security. That's fear. That's anxiousness. And that's such a good point that you're making, because even just hearing you say that, I'm like, man, so many of us walk around thinking that because the root or our heart posture behind what we're doing is genuine, we think that our actions are truly genuine and rooted in that too, when it really isn't. You're really self-serving your fears.
Yeah.
So that's good. I like that.
Yeah. And so just based off everything that I said, what would you say your attachment style is?
I would dare to say that I'm in a secure attachment style, but I have my own traumas too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever get 100% secure. I don't know. But what I will say is, I think there are times where my biggest fear comes somewhere, and I don't know which one that necessarily aligns with, but my biggest fear, I do have a big thing with reassurance.
Anxious.
So it might be the anxious style, because for me, my biggest thing is I don't ever want to feel like a person feels like they just wholeheartedly just deserve that. Like, bro, we're people. We all have our own responsibilities, and I can choose to do anything. I'm choosing you.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying that so that you hold me as some super high esteem. I just want you to appreciate the fact, because I truly appreciate that from a person.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't take people for granted as much as I can. Like I said, I am human. So if you're listening to this and say, Miles, you took me for granted, hey, guilty as is. But I do think that most people, and I personally feel like I am grateful for the smallest thing a person does for me, because I truly believe nobody got to do anything for me. And so I don't ever want to be in a relationship or in a friendship, in a business partnership with people who do not acknowledge the little things. Right. So reassurance is a big thing. Reassure a person of the fact that you see them.
Yeah.
And that you recognize, what they're doing, where they come from. But the funny thing is, I think that comes from the things I've seen in the world, not my actual personal experiences.
Yeah.
I don't have too many experiences that I can even think of right now where I don't feel like I personally have been appreciated. But I have seen so many examples of it, whether it's in social media or in other friends, and family and other people, where I'm like, these people are just ungrateful.
Yeah.
Like, why do they feel entitled
Yeah.
to this? And I think there's a whole lot of entitlement in the world.
There it is.
People want things that they just aren't in the position to demand. And they should really be asking for the things that they're trying to tell people to do. And I think that just really ticks off a piece of me, man. So
that makes sense. So, before you go into your next point,
Yeah.
I want to mention this. And I think I want to speak to the camera. So, if you do find yourself having anything beside a secure attachment style, it's not permanent, right?
Mhm.
You can learn, but you do have to address your traumas. Like when I did a deep dive into my trauma, and I did a deep dive into what I didn't have and what I needed, and I understood what that was, and I started giving it to myself, and I started focusing on becoming that person so I can give it to myself, right? And I started getting myself connected to God so I can realize that He already put it inside of me, right? Like, although I may not have gotten it what I needed from my parents, but
Yeah.
my Heavenly Father gave me everything that I needed, right?
Yeah.
But because I addressed them, the byproduct of that is being able to be in a healthy relationship now. So now if my lady goes out to the club or she's out with her girls, I don't got to sit home and drink to fill my time with BS. So I can, don't feel so anxious.
Yeah.
I don't got to stay up all night worrying if she's going to make it home. Right. When she says, "Hey, babe, I want to talk," I don't got to worry about my heart racing because I'm like, "Oh, is she going to
That's
leave? Is
real.
she upset with
Yep.
something?" I don't got to
What
worry about
happened?
that.
Yep.
Right. I realize now that, listen, Rex, there's certain things that you have to address. And if you don't address them, it's going to show up in your relationship. And if you come into this relationship with anxiety, with fear, with this avoidance style, you're only going to project it onto your partner. So she's going to take blame and accountability for things that you haven't addressed. And that's going to make her even more anxious.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with two anxious partners.
Yeah, that's good.
And that creates chaos within a relationship. So if you didn't have a secure attachment, it's totally fine. But let's talk about what you did have. Let's talk about what you needed. Let's talk about what you could give to yourself. And then once you start focusing on giving those things to yourself before a relationship, and you connect yourself with another healthy partner, now you guys could have a healthy relationship simply because you both did the work.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna move on.
Yeah.
But I do think that I have a lot more of that anxiousness, because when you mention like, oh, we need to talk about something, I am very big on, if there's a problem, address it now.
Yeah.
I don't like waiting, right? I am very big. Don't tell me we have an issue and then, oh, we'll talk about it when we see each other on Thursday. No, it's Monday. Let's hop on the phone. Let's figure this out now. And I think that comes from the fact that I got in trouble a lot as a kid.
Yeah.
A lot. I was always doing something I had no business doing, and I would get in trouble. And I always was on some like, bro, I'd rather it just happen now and get it over with, get my punishment, whatever it's going to be, and get it out the way. Because when sneaking around and stuff, there's always anxiety behind that, because you're sitting here like, man, do people know? Is somebody going to find out? Was I really as slick as I thought I was? And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. So that anxious attachment style.
Man, let me say this real quick. Talking about being in trouble, I think one of the most things that brought me the most anxiety during my childhood was when I did get in trouble and I got that phone call from my pops. And he'd be like, he'd be so calm, telling me something. What's going on, Sal? And he was like, so, I heard this happened at school today or whatever. And I was like, making him a lot. Oh, but no. He said, oh, it's all good.
Don't worry about it.
I'm going to see you later.
Oh.
All right, love you, son. And you got to say, love you too. Knowing that you don't know if he's going to come home in a good mood, if he's going to come home and be a Tasmanian devil, you just don't really know. But having to delay a consequence, oh man, you don't know when it's going to happen. So that brought so much anxiety.
That's good.
What you got for your point number 2?
That's
brother?
Good. Number 2, when you don't address those relational traumas, you will seek what you miss from your parents in your partner. That's right. And that's going to lead to unfair expectations for them. So, prime example, if you grew up in a situation and your mother didn't love you the way you felt you needed to be loved when you were a boy, she didn't appreciate you or show up for you in the way you felt she needed to show up for you, you were never good enough to please your mother. What ends up happening is you then get a girlfriend or a wife, and you're looking for them to do the things that mommy never did, when her job is to be your girlfriend or your wife. It is not to be your mother, right? And so you're seeking out the things mommy should have did for you in your wife and in your girlfriend. And inevitably what ends up happening is when they inevitably come up short of reaching an expectation that they were never supposed to be trying to aim for, it's going to hit different for you, and it's going to cut deeper than it really should, because it's never been about what they did do. It's about what your mom didn't do.
Yeah.
Right. And I just seen that in a lot of different people. You're carrying your mother wounds or your father wounds into your relationship, and then you're seeking for them to come in and play that role.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not how this works. They can help you heal those wounds and show you like, hey, you don't have to be this way with me. You're safe here. I appreciate you. But you can't seek for them to treat you how a mother treats a son.
Yeah.
Those are two totally different things. Or how a father treats a daughter. That's two totally different things. Your parents set a foundation, right? But if that foundation is unstable, and then you get into a relationship and you're not aware that you got this rocky foundation, you're not going to know how you're placing that onto other people, and you can't build on something unstable. Eventually it crumbles.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that that's a big part of this relational conversation when it comes to your trauma, is what you don't address and understand and are aware of from your parents. A lot of times you seek it out in a partner, and you can be seeking out all the wrong things that are no good for you.
Yep, and that comes in many forms. I'll give you a perfect example of how it shows up in a relationship. I had a gentleman call me the other day. He said, listen, man, I'm a young guy, and I'm in a relationship with an older woman. And he was just like, it's a very transactional relationship. I think she loves me because of my energy and because of the sex and because of my lifestyle, and I love her because of what she can do for me.
Good, Rex, yeah.
Yeah, and he said, I said to him, I said, so what is the relationship like when you guys go out and about? I said, do you feel like she kind of treats you like a kid? He was like, actually, bro, yeah. He was like, we'll go to restaurants, she'll order for me. Like when it comes to the stuff I need to pay for school, I just pass her my phone and she pays for it. And I said, how old is she? He was like, well, she's 35 and I'm 26. And I was like, oh, so she's pouring into you like you're her son, right? And then you are addressing her as if she's an authoritative figure for you. And I was just like, so the things that you didn't get from your mom, you're getting from this woman, and the things that she may not have got from her father, she's trying to give those things to you, trying to like fix you up. So from one side of things, you become a person that tries to fix as a person. From the other side of things, you take everything from a person and almost like a kid taking from their parents or receiving from their parents. So that's perfect example coming to my mind when you mentioned what you just said.
Nah, bro, that is a perfect example, because that is one of the main ways it takes root, because that's the difference between a partner and a parent.
Yeah.
Parents do for you because they have to.
Yeah.
They can't expect nothing in return from their child, right? Children are learning, they're growing, they're going to mess up all those different things, and they can only hold you accountable to a certain extent, right? But they can't place certain expectations on you like you're 20, 30, 40 years old and have experienced life. They have to have a certain level of leniency. But when it comes to a partner, you're two grown adults coming together, and it's supposed to be a mutual relationship. You're pouring into it, they're pouring into it. You receive things from it, they receive things from it. We're serving each other. Children don't typically serve their parents. There may be some amazing child out there that has that down at an early age and does that, but typically as a child, you are selfish.
Yeah.
Right. And that's okay. You're worried about me, me, me. And that's what comes with having children. And that's okay. You have to teach them how to do that. But like you said, when you're in those relationships, it's so transactional when you carry that parenting trauma in there. And so now when you don't feel like she's doing what she's supposed to do, you like, nah, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
You know, this is not how a wife's supposed to be. No. I am being what a wife is supposed to be. You want a mother.
Yeah.
I am being what a husband's supposed to be. You want a father.
Yeah.
And you know what it kind of reminds me of?
What's that?
We got an epidemic of women that want sugar daddies.
Yeah.
Right? Who want a transactional relationship. They don't want the emotions.
Yeah.
Right? But they want a man to take care of them.
Yeah.
They want a daddy. They want a father. They don't want love. They don't want a partner.
Yeah.
That's relational trauma. Because if your dad was in your life and did what he was supposed to, you wouldn't be seeking for another random man to come in and take care of you. Because dad's job is to take care of you.
Yeah.
You know how many women they can call their dad up right now? Dad, my tire just broke down. This is that. If dad can't make it, he's sending the money right now to make sure she good. Don't move. AAA's on the way. How much you need for $1,000? Here you go, baby. It's taken care of. She could be grown as all get out.
Yeah.
Daddy gonna still take care of her. Versus, you know, she's seeking that from some random man out there now. And she's trying to get what her father never did for her. So it's just that's so real, Rex, is you start getting very transactional when you got them father wounds and the mother wounds and you carry them into your relationship.
Yep. And then, the last thing I want to add to that is this. This is what it can also turn into. You can become a young lady, right? You have this really great relationship with your father as a kid. And then maybe your parents split up, so your father has to leave. Then your father starts giving you all these promises. I'll be there to come see you this weekend. I'm gonna come pick you up. I'm gonna take you here. And you start the way the streetlights come on, and your mom says, "Hey man, come in the house. Daddy ain't coming.
Yeah,
Daddy not coming." But you still got hope in that he is gonna show up, that he is gonna become better, that he is gonna do better. But you got your mom telling you, "Nah, your pops ain't showing up. Your pops don't love you like that," right? Then you grow up. And you try to be in a healthy relationship, but you don't know how to be in a healthy relationship because you never dealt with that trauma. A man that's there, a man that's consistent, a man that's constant, a man that's everything your father wasn't. You don't know how to handle that because that's not what you were exposed to.
Yeah.
But you will chase that toxic man.
Yeah.
You will chase that man that you feel like you got to fix. You will chase that man that'll leave. But every single time he comes back, you let him come back because he's doing exactly what your father did. But this time he is coming back. So he may cheat on you and you accept it because, he's here. Right? You may cheat on you and you accept it because he paying some bills. You're going to settle for less because of that father wound and that mother wound that you never addressed. So it's going to be so important for people to do that.
That's good, bro. What's your point number 2?
Man, my point number 2 is we are wounded in relationships, but we're also healed in relationships, right? And this is understanding that trauma. So let's step outside of family trauma and starting to talk about relational trauma, right? If I got done wrong by an ex-partner, right? Whether she done something to lose my trust, she texts somebody else, or just whatever may happen. She breaks my heart. She leaves. That next person, I'm going to feel like is going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to feel like, well, before she does it to me, I need to do it to her.
Yeah.
I'm going to beat her to the punch.
Yeah.
Right. But that's you continuing that toxic cycle. Right. Versus you getting healthy like you're supposed to get healthy, you finding another partner that's healthy, and then you guys are doing the work together to show up for each other, and it's very healing. And this is when I got to give a shout out to my wife, right? Shout out to the most beautiful woman in the world. And one thing I tell her all the time is, you're so good for my nervous system. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I don't have any worries with you. I'm at peace with you. I feel safe with you. Like I can have a hard conversation and realize that at the end of it, we're not attacking each other. We're on the same team.
Yeah.
Give each other a kiss and we can cuddle and go to bed. You know what I'm saying? Even if we have to cry in that conversation, it's okay for me to cry in front of you because I know you're not going to use my tears to try to attack me.
Yeah.
Right. If I need to tell you something that's a deep, dark secret, I can, because you're going to sit in it, you're going to accept it, and then you're going to give me something back. I remember when I talked to her about my past, and all the good, the bad, the ugly, and the sad. And she was like, I really appreciate you for sharing that with me. And she was like, do you feel like there's certain things in your past that you still need to heal from? Is there any way I can help you? Like, she is just support.
Yes.
She is showing her nurturing side. She's showing that wisdom. She is showing that direction. And I was like, man, you are just so good for my nervous system. So that goes to show, yes, you can be wounded in relationships. People can do you bad. They can do you dirty. They can traumatize you. They can, man, throw dirt in your name. But at the same time, if you allow God's people to come into your life,
Yeah.
and to show up for you and to support you and to ask you the right questions, and you lean in, you can also be healed in relationships.
If it's the right person, it forces you to heal.
Yep.
It forces you, because honestly, Rex, that point is so amazing. What ends up happening is, if you want this to work, you realize that the way you've been isn't going to work.
Yep.
Something has to change.
Yep.
And it's going to require you to dig deep. It's going to require you, like you said, to open up about things. You know, me and you were having a conversation at the coffee shop about different things that it's like never opened up to our partners about before. We would never tell a woman those things.
Yeah.
But when you're with somebody that you trust and you feel safe with and that you love and you truly think is on your side, like you said, we're a team. You get to a point to where it's like, okay, this is causing too much conflict, trying to act like I'm trying to be a solo player on a team. I'm trying to act like I'm in a individual sport, but I'm not. I'm not in an individual sport. This is partners right here. This is duos. And I can't play and win this game by myself. And it forces you to go deep and adapt and open up to your partner about things that you otherwise would have kept to yourself.
Yeah.
It forces you to grow and to heal those things, because when you're with the right person, like you said, the fear is, when I open up about this, now it's going to worry her.
Yeah.
If I tell her about my financial struggles, now she's going to get more worried and nervous. I got to just keep the charade up. You know, I can't let her know how bad it is. If I tell her about the things that I'm tempted with, now she's not going to trust me.
Yeah.
If I tell her about my struggles with faith, now she's going to think that I'm not the man God has sent for her. You start to think of all these things that if I tell her, it's not gonna work in my favor. Things are gonna go all bad. Things are going good enough. We're here together. It's best to keep it that way. But then you wonder why you keep running into the same cycle of problems.
Yeah.
But when it's the right woman, when it's the woman God has sent you, what happens is she sits there and she makes you feel like that's okay.
Yeah.
Like that is completely okay, that you have gone through these things, that you're dealing with these things currently. How can I help? Right? You don't have to be worried about this. What can I do different? How have I contributed to this? And what can I change? That is so good. It does heal you, bro. It really does.
It does. And it reminds me of the exercise that you see on TikTok and social media. We listen and we don't judge.
Yeah.
That right. Although that's a joke, that's so serious, because that's how we should all show up in relationships. We listen and we don't judge. If I don't judge you, I give you the opportunity to show me your heart. I give you the opportunity to show me your fears. I give you the opportunity to show me the areas where you don't like about me.
Yeah.
Right. And if I'm not judging you, then you feel safe to do it.
Yeah.
And if you feel safe to do something, you'll continue to do it. And if you're not doing it in the way that I feel like you should do it, then I can tell you that, okay, maybe the tone is different or maybe your wording is different. But if I'm not judging you, you'll be open enough to share with me.
Hear that.
So we listen and we don't judge. It may seem like a joke, But if you follow that, I promise your relationship will change.
That's good.
Yeah.
Keep repeating that to
Yeah,
myself.
I'm
That's
telling
actually good. That's good. I like that.
What you got for your last point,
All
brother?
right, my point number 3. The reason why you really need to dive deep on your relational trauma with your parents, your past experience with partners, all that interpersonally, is because the stronger the family unit, the stronger the individuals.
That's good.
Right? Oftentimes, we think that the only way that the unit gets better is if we as individuals get better. And that's true in many circumstances. But there's an old saying that the sum is greater than its parts,
Yeah.
right? And that's powerful. Even when I think about it biblically, and Rex, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's talked about whenever you become a union, right? You may be 2 people becoming one, right? But you're really 3.
Yeah.
Because now God is added to the equation in this perfect covenant. It's not 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah.
Shout out to Coach Lauren.
Yeah.
Right? That is a powerful concept, because when you come together, you are multiplied. You can become a better person. And this kind of goes back to what you were talking about a little bit with how that person can heal you. But I just have some statistics that I want to
Talk to me.
to read out that of what happens when you address that relational trauma and y'all figure it out together as a family unit. Children from stable 2-parent households are 44% more likely to graduate from college compared to those from single-parent homes. Boys raised in father-absent homes are 279% more likely to carry guns and deal drugs than those that have intact families. Adults who grew up in supportive 2-parent families have a 36% lower risk of depression compared to those who experience family instability. Children from married parents and families are 82% less likely to experience poverty in their life. And individuals that were raised in stable, loving homes are 40% more likely to have long-lasting marriages with themselves. So all around the board, because the unit is stronger, because that trauma that keeps you from talking with each other, and you only come around each other when it's the holidays. And even when you come around when it's the holidays, I'm not talking to Uncle Joey. Aunt Barbara, she got to stay away from me.
Yeah.
Right? I'm my sister. Yeah, me and her, we don't get along. We don't fool with each other. Right? That stuff right there is the same thing that's gonna bleed into your children when they see that. And they're watching. It's like, my mom and my daddy don't even get along with their siblings. Why do I have to make it work out with my sister?
Yeah.
Right? My mom and my daddy avoid each other for weeks on end whenever they don't like each other, even if they're together, because it's not healthy. Or my mom and my dad didn't make it work. So why do I have to make it work with somebody?
Yep.
It sets the wrong dynamic, and sets the wrong tone for the individuals that are in that family. It creates selfishness. It introduces you to being more susceptible to attacks from the enemy. The devil hates families. He hates marriages, because that's the foundation of bringing up children who know God.
Yep.
Right? And what you know from a very early age is really hard to turn away from.
Yep.
Versus when you're an adult and you're having to be introduced to it for the first time and give up all these other things that you've lived your whole life doing. The family is the most important aspect of any community and of any nation. We have a lot of broken families, and that's why our nation and our community as Black people is so ruined in the first place. So you have to address your traumas, if not for yourself, for your children to come, for the family, your connected family around you, and for the generations that come afterwards, because that's where it all starts. It starts now with us getting together and recovering from the pain that's been caused in the past, to being open and being accountable for the traumas that have been inflicted. I think about what you just explained with that man and his uncle doing that. More than likely, his uncle had that done to him by somebody.
That's what they said too. Yep.
So it's like, man, when does it stop?
Yeah.
When does it stop? Because even though he may not have done it to somebody, that trauma is still there and it's showing up in other ways.
Yep.
If he's cheating on his wife, it's showing up like that. Now that tears apart a happy home.
Yep.
There are so many different aspects. If you don't address your trauma, it will ruin you. It will eat you alive until you have nothing left.
Absolutely. And then one thing I want to add to that is this. If you were raised in a household when your parents told you what happens in this house stays in this house, that becomes your core belief. So you even fear going to tell somebody else what's going on in the house. right?
Yeah.
Or if you grew up in a situation where something happened to you, you had relational trauma, and you went to go tell your mama, you went to go tell your pops, and they just kind of brushed it under the rug. Oh no, they didn't. That person wouldn't do that to you. Shut up, that's your
Mm-hmm.
uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was no longer safe. Listen, I know it don't feel good. But the best thing that you can do for yourself, the best thing that you can do for your future family is to sit down and talk to somebody
Yes.
about what you experienced. Because 9 times out of 10, you're not alone. 9 times out of 10, there's somebody else that may have those same experiences. 9 times out of 10, that's going to free you of the shame, free you from the secrets, free you from having to deal with this by yourself. And now you can address it with somebody else. You can, like I said, give that burden to somebody else that can give you something back. So once again, this is the call to action is literally if you are that person, you know you got a lot of family trauma and that family trauma is seeping into your relationship. If you're a mother and it's seeping into how you look at your daughter, if you're a father and it's seeping into how you show up for your son, if you're a husband and it's seeping into how you show up for your wife, if you're a wife and it's seeping into how you show up for your husband, you must address it. If it's strong enough to affect the unit, you must address it because whatever is left unaddressed is suppressed, and was whatever's left is suppressed, it gets passed down to the next generation, and that's when things go bad.
That's good, bro. That is so powerful, man. That's
Yeah,
really good. I want to hear your point number 3.
and it's to be honest with you, brother, it's piggybacking off of your point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you don't address it, it affects your capacity to show up as a husband and as a father.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm a man and my father never told me that he loved me.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, perfect example. One of the very first men caves you came to,
Mm-hmm.
there was a man that was there and said, I grew up in this type of household. My dad was a provider, but he didn't provide emotionally. He didn't provide mentally or spiritually. He brought the money to the table.
Yeah.
And he never told me that he loved me. Right. And now that I have a daughter, I have a hard time. Matter of fact, I don't tell her that I love her at all, but I just show her that I love her.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, so I don't know if I should just start telling her or if I should just stop. I said, no, you need to tell her.
Mm-hmm.
I said, because you're here now expressing what it feels like for you to be an adult man and not be able to tell your daughter that you love her. And you're telling us as an adult man what it felt like for your father to never tell you. That's hurt, brother. That's pain.
Mm-hmm.
There's a piece of you that's missing
Mm-hmm.
that a woman would never be able to feel,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it came from a father wound.
Mm-hmm.
Same way for a woman that's wanting to be a wife. There's pieces of you that's missing because of a father wound or a mother wound. And the only way to truly address it is to have the conversation, to decide that you're going to forgive them, to decide that you're going to give yourself the things that you need. And if your parents are deceased, it's really just doing that internal work because you can't have that conversation.
Yeah.
So if you don't address that trauma, that relational trauma, that family trauma, it affects your capacity. You may not be able to show up for your son like you want to.
Yeah.
You may find yourself working all the time.
Yeah.
And you say, well, I mean, I am paying the bills.
Yeah.
My kids eating.
Yeah.
They got clothes on their back, right? They got food in their stomach.
Yep.
I'm doing my job. But no, you're forgetting your son needs your words. Your son needs your validation. Your son needs your guidance. I had that conversation with a gentleman the other day. He's great in his career, and he has a wife and kids. And his wife told him, the way your son acts is almost as if he has no father at home. And he was like, that kind of hit me hard because I realized I wasn't being present.
Mm-hmm.
Like Eric Thomas said, I am a public success, but a private failure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know my sons.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I said, so what was your relationship with your father like? He was like, well, it was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't address it, he passed that bad boy down. Now his son joined the gang, his son doing all these bad things, his son misbehaving because him and his father don't have that relationship and he hasn't been pointing to him like he needs him to. So once again, if you really want to have the capacity, you really want to be the husband or be the father or be the partner that God has called you to be, you got to address everything that's preventing you from doing it.
That's good. That's so good. It makes me think of it from this perspective. We kind of talked about this in the last episode with sexual trauma, but
Yeah.
Traumas that don't go addressed and then they continue to get passed down and that's all people see. What happens is those become the norm.
100%.
Right? They become, that's just what men do. That's just what women do. And I think about, there's this video. It's a really funny video, but it's an old school black man, old school cat. and I think it's his grandson. I don't know if they're talking about food or whatever it is, but at a certain point in the video, he's like, "Man, give me a hug, man. Tell me you love me, whatever." They're just joking around. His grandfather's like, "Get your hands off me. You don't hug on no player." And I think about it because when you think about old school men saying I love you, giving you hugs, giving you a kiss, all those different things, they don't do that.
Yeah.
That's not what a man does to them,
Yeah.
right? And then they pass that on to their sons who were our fathers. And so for many of our fathers, it's a struggle for them to be open emotionally with their sons, right? And then when we're coming up and we're wondering, why we have all these, struggles, like you said, showing up for our children in certain ways, it almost to us, we'll chalk it up to, oh, it's a different day and age.
Yeah.
So they need this. They need love and all that soft stuff because it's different. No, it's not a different day and age in a bad way. It's not a different day and age and now kids just all of a sudden need love. You needed love too.
Yeah.
But you had to learn to adapt without it because you weren't getting it.
Yeah.
Your father and his father before him and his father before him needed love too. But since nobody received it, it became the norm. But just because something is the norm doesn't mean it's the standard that we need to hold ourselves to. Doesn't mean that it's the way we should be living. Because if you think about it, if I starve you long enough and you're used to the fact, let's talk about it from this perspective. When you start intermittent fasting, what happens to your stomach after a while?
You talking hungry, it gets thinner.
It shrinks.
Yeah.
Your stomach gets smaller, right? Because you have deprived yourself from overeating and indulging on food, your stomach actually starts to shrink. And then when you try to come back to eat the same way that you did before because your eyes say you can, you're like, man, I can't finish half the food that I used to finish, right? It'll become the norm. And while that is a healthy form of that, your mind and your body naturally adapts to what it lacks so that you won't lack anymore.
Yeah.
So it'll protect itself and say, we don't care about love.
Yeah.
We don't care about hearing that word. That word doesn't mean anything to us. We don't care about reassurance. We don't care about hugs and kisses because we didn't get those when we wanted them when we were young. We don't need them when we get older.
Facts.
And now when you have to be the man that's emotional, when you have to be the man for your child that gives the hugs and the kisses, when you have to be the man that can be nurturing, you can't do it. And it literally seems foreign and that it's not what you're supposed to be doing as a man because your mind and everything that you've seen has reinforced that men just don't do that.
Bruh, that's facts. And in this moment, because I know we're short on time too, I want to take this moment to, man, give a shout out to my pops.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying? Because Pops told me, he was like, son, my pops didn't tell me that he loved me until I was 21. And the reason he said he didn't love me, or he never said it, was because every single time he told something or somebody that he loved them, they either left him or hurt him. He was like, so he showed me love by teaching me how to do things, but he just never told it to me. He said, and I told myself that I would never make y'all feel that way. And one thing I will say about my pops was he was very hands-on. He was going to give you the hug. He was going to give you the kiss on the cheek or kiss on the forehead. And as we got of age and we like, all right, Pops, no more kisses, he'll put his hand on our forehead and kiss his own hand, right? And that's love. He never stopped that, right? Even now, he'll still give us a hug. He'll still tell us that he loves us. There's no ego in it. There's no pride in it. Like, he realizes that, yes, he has relational trauma with his own father, with his own mother, but he said, I will not let this be passed down to my kids. So shout out to my pops, and I appreciate you, Pops, and love you.
That's good, brother. A thought just came up to me. Father's Day, we should do an episode talking about why we appreciate our fathers.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a good one. Like, specifically our dads, what they did in our life and why we appreciate them. I think that's going to be something good.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, that's a powerful message, man. I think this was great. This topic is so imperative and it's needed right now.
Yeah.
As men, we're developing, whether you're in a relationship, non-relationship, you're married, it's never too late because this isn't leaving you.
Yeah.
It's going to be with you until you address it and you learn how to deal with it. So now is the best time, right? Not tomorrow, not a week from now, not 2 years from now, not when you have to become it. Do it now because you want to be the man the moment demands before the moment demands it.
Yeah.
So you don't come up short.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's our main topic for today. Before we close out, I want to give first a shout out to Opus Clips. Thank you guys for the ways that you have been supporting us. Opus Clips is the best software that you can use online. It's AI oriented, where you can be able to drop your long form content, spit it into the engine, tell them what you're looking for. You can put big keywords that you really want to pull clips from. You will get short form out of it with 20, 30, even 40 clips in a matter of minutes. And you'll be able to build your podcast, build your reaction channels a lot quicker by using them. So we want to shout out to Opus Clips. Second thing we want to do is we want to give a shout out to Discount Mugs, man, for these shirts. Rex, tell us what you like about the shirt real quick.
Man, this shirt is comfortable. It fits really well. The material is absolutely amazing. The color is great. And then the stitching is on point, man.
Yeah, man. Discount Mugs has done a great job of allowing us to elevate the game, right? We've been talking about it for a while, how we wanted to raise the standard of our show. And part of that was the look that we ourselves carried.
Yep.
And being able to have something uniform that when we're on the show recording or when we're out in the community doing work, we can be uniform is powerful. Shout out to Discount Mugs because they have a great website that allows you so many options for anything you need custom for your business. It doesn't matter if it's shirts, if it's mugs, if it's pins, if it's hats. Doesn't matter. They can do it. They have a great customer support team, and they'll get you your products really quick as well, at an affordable rate. And we have a code for you guys. We want you to use the code MY30OFF. It will give you $30 off your orders of $100 or more. MY30OFF. MY30OFF. Thank you to Discount Mugs. And honestly, just thank you to all of you.
Yeah.
The way you guys continue to watch us and support us is special. Rex, let them know where they can find you.
Absolutely. As we dive into the topics of trauma, sexual trauma, relational trauma, financial trauma, if you find yourself needing a space to uncover and to really unpack this trauma and peel back these layers, listen, you can go to resolvecc.com, book a session with me, and I can take care of you. So once again, it's resolvecc.com, and I'll take care of you.
Man, I'm telling you guys, the work that he's doing over there is changing men's lives. Make sure you guys sign up for the Morning Mastery Meetup. The link is in his bio. It's a great place for men to be able to come in and develop. I'm Miles Harris. I go by Miles the Millennial. I'm a motivational speaker and best-selling author. If you work with youth and young adults, whether you're in colleges, you have a nonprofit organization, or you're working in public schools or private schools, I am a motivational speaker that comes in and transforms the minds of your students so that they can perform better. You can find me at www.milesthemillennial.com, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.
See y'all next week.